Have you ordered from limited run games only for the order to be delayed and it wasn't your fault? You may not be entitled to compensation, but if you buy from them afterwards, you're definitely entitled to a Fell For It Again award. Your award will arrive in 10 months. Maybe. If you're lucky. Yes, chances are that if you care somewhat about collecting games physically, you've at least heard of limited run games. They're the biggest name in this particular corner of the industry, and for some titles, they're the only option for actually getting a physical version of an indie game. Sometimes, somehow, even for special collector's editions of AAA games. Unfortunately, crappy production, massively delayed orders, and a host of other controversies have given LRG a reputation that they're at best a necessary evil, and at worst, they're a reason why you should forego physical entirely. So, what happened to limited run games? Was it always this bad, or did something happen along the way that just led to them becoming perceived as one of the worst companies in all of gaming? Are their current efforts going to be enough to alter public perception, or has a limit been reached for limited run games? Let's take a look. Limited Run Games began life in October 2015, founded by Josh Fairhurst and Douglas Bogart, as a means for Fairhurst to try and physically preserve games developed by his game dev studio, Mighty Rabbit Games. The two were particularly inspired by the huge success of Retro City Rampage's physical release, and so announced that the first game would be Breach and Clear for the PlayStation Vita. The first game would ultimately sell out within a pretty impressive 108 minutes, proving once again there was a market for physical releases of indie games. Limited Run was off to the races. After creating a physical release of Mighty Rabbit's Saturday Morning RPG, Limited Run Games were approached by Oddworld inhabitants to create a physical run of Oddworld New and Tasty, which would fully move LRG into the world of third-party production. Through 2016 and 2017, LRG produced dozens of third-party games across a range of different platforms, expanded their offerings by introducing collector editions, and changed their ordering policy from a set production number to a pre-order period where they'd print to meet demand. 2017 offered LRG's first real hurdle though, as ESRB would put the squeeze on specialty sellers. Beforehand, physical print resellers like Limited Run Games or I Am 8-Bit wouldn't need to seek out an additional ESRB rating, considering the game had already been released in the past. That changed with LRG et al. Now having to pay out of pocket to have their games rated, though at a discount if the game had a sub $1 million budget, and that works out to about $3,000 in fees versus $10,000. ESRB would say that the ratings are voluntary, but also noted that many storefronts and retail stores have a policy that means they only stock ESRB rated games. Douglas Bogart summed up his thoughts on the ESRB ruling pretty succinctly when he said, "There's no nice way to put it, they basically have a monopoly." Despite this ESRB ruling, Limited Run Games would still go on strong, even as others hit some struggles. Special Reserve Games cancelled their run of Ruiner, citing the ESRB as the reason why they would partner with LRG years later to release Ruiner physically. God, what a whiffer of a game, by the way. As for LRG moving into 2018, they'd partner with Best Buy to stock games like Yooka-Laylee and Golf Story in their in-person stores, possibly due to the ESRB's ruling. Either way, the move promised a better cut for developers while giving LRG the reach to sign bigger publishers and games. That's something that had paid dividends in 2019 when they partnered with Disney to release older Star Wars games, marking a move towards retro games as well as contemporary releases. LRG wouldn't make it out of 2018 without some issues though, as they'd engage in a lawsuit against Badland Games due to some issues regarding a release of Axiom Verge on the Wii U. The two would reconcile and ultimately release Axiom Verge physically. Where the issues seem to really start though is in 2019, which was the same for everyone. The challenging conditions that led to us all being stuck at home for months, or so toilet paper was cryptocurrency, led to a proper customer issue for LRG. Pretty much everyone was stuck at home, which naturally led to increased demand from the gaming industry, most notably felt from nearly everyone getting lost in turnip prices on their own Animal Crossing islands. However, increased demand put further strain on the already present supply difficulties coming from China. Limited Run CEO Josh Fairhurst spoke about those difficulties to GamesIndustry.biz, stating, "You have to wait months and months and months and months just to get a shipping crate. It can take a year to get stuff over from China right now. Manufacturing will complete pretty fast, but just trying to get stuff on a boat and get it over here is just absurd." Speaking anecdotally, we ourselves felt that with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World the game. Ash waited 8 months for it to be dispatched after ordering it in January 2021, placing it right in the midst of those supply chain issues. Even though it was another situation that wasn't LRG's fault, it feels like this is where public perception began to sour for the company. Scotty P wasn't the only delay at that time, with some apparently waiting 7 months for a Shantae release, though Scott Pilgrim would have them beat. Scott Pilgrim was their biggest launch of all time at that point, but people having to wait 2/3 of a year for their order feels like something was not quite working somewhere. Not only that, but because so many people were waiting on Scott Pilgrim, LRG were all hands on deck to fulfill those orders, leaving some reporting that other games were pushed to the wayside for weeks in the process. LRG was gaining a reputation as a logistical supply chain nightmare, and that's a reputation that stuck for the better half of a decade. 2022 might have been the most telling year in the downfall of limited run games though, as they were acquired by Embracer Group. You know, those nostalgia merchants that buy up the licenses to all of your favourite games and properties, then reel them out for cheap cash grabs only to cancel and shut studios when people widely reject it? Yeah, them. The main selling point for LRG was that they could do new runs of games like Knights of the Old Republic, but Embracer haven't been strangers to controversy themselves over the years. The issue for LRG is that the controversy has massively increased since the buyout, and while we can't establish cause and effect, the correlation is interesting to say the least. After one half of the founding pair Doug Bogart parted ways with LRG in April 2023, the issues came thick and fast. The delays became part and parcel of the LRG ordering experience, while new issues regarding the actual production quality became more and more commonplace, especially more recently with the Sonic X Shadow Generations release. The last thing you want to do is annoyed the Sonic community, but LRG started making moves that were actively dangerous to both their brand and to you as a consumer that go way beyond some mildly annoyed Sonic fans. For starters, limited run games were caught using CDR discs for their run of D on the 3DO rather than pressed on disc, with the issue being that CDR discs didn't even work properly on real hardware and can be done by anyone with a blank disc and a CD burner. Meanwhile, actual pressed-on discs have the data fully encoded onto the disc. Basically, limited run games got caught using the cheapest solution possible and were summarily lambasted by the community in doing so, stating after the fact that they were working with new partners to find a solution for traditionally pressed discs. I mean, they wouldn't have had to do that if they just made the right decision the first time around. A year later, LRG found themselves in a similar situation, but one that's more damaging to both their rep and your consoles. Someone by the name of Jordi Gutierrez Hermoso found that limited run were using NES cartridges with voltage issues. It surrounded a discrepancy between the 3.3V cartridges and the 5V consoles they're being used on, with prolonged use leading to damage for both the cartridge and the console, with Jordi finding these issues on LRG's release of Rugrats Adventures in Gameland and P.O. Pow. LRG cited a rogue production company who wasn't their regular partner as the ones responsible. Funnily enough though, LRG would find themselves in manufacturing hot water again a couple of months later with the release of Shantae Advance Risky Revolution. It was discovered that the manufacturers responsible, Retrobit, used recycled components in order to fulfill orders. Customers would check the cartridges only to find dirty and scuffed chips, with many wondering how safe they'd be to actually use. Retrobit did state the cartridges were made to spec and that they should be safe, but given the 3DO debacle months earlier, trust had already been broken. In all of these examples, it seems like partner companies and manufacturers are the ones responsible for the issues, but the common denominator in all of this is limited run games and CEO Josh Fairhurst. It all points to a low bar for quality control at the bare minimum, but that was merely the tip of the iceberg for LRG's issues, as highlighted by an amazing 90-minute video from Mr. Ixert. They speak to former employees and whistleblowers about LRG, and the allegations are kind of damning. Quite possibly one of the most damning allegations for a company called LRG is that LRG would secretly reprint these limited games without informing customers, with Josh Fairhurst using the justification that we can't get caught because we don't release sales numbers. That's a crazy thing to say. Out loud, especially. There are also claims of missing charity donations, COVID policies that actively endangered employees, personal vendettas with I Am 8-bit, and just an all-round toxic workplace that encouraged a "the leader is always right" mentality. Oh, and if all of that isn't bad enough, they've been embroiled in a $3 million lawsuit because they sold a bunch of customer data to Meta. Clearly, something had to change, and in 2026, it did. After years of what felt like sloppy service all round, limited run games aimed to revitalise themselves, with the former CEO and president announcing his departure on January 1st. The company themselves would follow up that momentum by announcing a fan-first focus to tighten up the business. Call me nuts, but you should typically always put the consumer up first, right? That's like the business rule number one. Still, this fan-first focus hasn't even been going that well already. You see, in the past month, limited run games have sent out emails to a lot of their customers informing them that there will be huge delays on their orders because a change is as good as a break, I suppose. In the emails, limited run games cite their own over-aggressive deadlines and optimism as they undergo changes within the company. Considering delays were a part of the process anyway, it's hard to see what's changed. An overhaul is desperately needed, obviously, but people often don't care about the cause, only the symptoms, and even if the cause is different, limited run games is still showing the same symptoms. So, have you had some horror stories with limited run games? I remember I had to wait a long time for my Doom Collector's Edition of the original game. The Classics Collection, that took, I think, when it arrived I had no idea. I was like, did I even buy this? Let us know if you've had any down below. It's just unfortunate they happen to be one of the few companies committed to actually, preserving games physically in a world that's going increasingly digital. But apparently when you're the biggest game in town, you get arrogant enough to think that cutting corners won't matter. With a potentially diskless new generation on the horizon, it might not even be up to limited run games themselves. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this and you want more like this, be sure to let me know down below. I've been Jimmy for Cultured Vultures. It's been good to have you, and I'll catch you when I catch you.